Welcome to whatever this is. We don't have a name for it yet.
We don't have a name for this thing yet.
Yeah.
It is just a thing.
It is just a thing that we happen to do. But anyway, introductions. So I am Gab Dizon, aka Seele. On Twitter, you can find me as @Seele000, @Seele000. And with me today is...
Hi, I am Hezron Hibe. I go by @Denryu Rider on all handles, Twitter, Instagram, etc.
You have an Instagram?
Yes.
Fuck you. Anyway. Continue. Okay. So we got over that part. Now, so the main things that we'll be talking about today for this podcast, I mentioned it on Twitter multiple times that I've been intending to do this ever since. Wait, why did I? All right, it's inspired mostly by our talks at coffee shops, where we tend to stay from around 10 p.m. all the way until closing, which is around 12 a.m., 12 midnight. And we tend to talk about a lot of stuff. From a wide variety of topics, ranging from the state of Philippine media, to the state of Philippine science, to generally anything that piques our interest. So essentially, that's going to be the same format in this recording, in this podcast of sorts. I can't really call this a podcast, to be honest.
This is only a podcast adjacent thing.
Yeah, like, what are podcasts anyway? What's the definition of a podcast?
I actually don't know.
You don't know either. So that's why we are calling this a podcast based off what we see on the internet, but really this is closer to a coffee shop discussion than anything else.
This is literally the representation of you, the listener, literally walking in on us being in a coffee shop discussing loudly about
whatever this is.
Whatever this is.
Yeah. And speaking of which, whatever this is directly reflected from whatever John Oliver says about his show. He doesn't even know what his show is, so he just calls it whatever this is, even though it says last week tonight with John Oliver. So anyway.
We actually were planning on doing something similar to that
first. That takes too much effort.
But that takes too much effort, and it wouldn't basically get the same experience as you would by you literally walking in on us in a coffee shop discussing whatever this is.
Yeah. So welcome to whatever this is. We don't have a name for it yet. It might just be whatever this is.
Oh, we'll have a name for it. We can't actually... I don't think we can actually use whatever this is.
Okay, fine. So, our main topics would be, for this night, science, especially Philippine science. Well, particularly just Philippine science. Although, since you have two scientists here, and we'd like to talk about the state of Philippine science as a thing.
So before we start actually doing that, let's tell our listeners here that why exactly are we talking about science? What qualifications do we have?
Yeah. So let's start with you, Hez, actually.
Okay.
Since so why are you an environmental scientist in the first place?
I've always had a fascination about the idea of fixing things. And as a kid, what I always told the teachers at elementary school about what my dream job is, it would always be to be a doctor. I actually was kind of in the track to be a med student at some point before going into UP. But I failed the cutoff for the UPCAT for both of the pre-med course. Yeah, I did not pass the cutoff for intermed. I did not pass the pre-med courses that I added into the UPCAT. What's it called? The course.
The course priority.
Priority.
Yeah.
Because both of those were quota courses and they ran out of slots.
Oh.
But I passed the Diliman cutoff. So I actually had to find the course.
Wait, so DP was ka?
Yes.
Oh.
So that's how I got into physics.
Well, we don't have a quota, so we need more physicists. we needed more physicists.
Yeah.
So
I shuffled through several disciplines.
isn't this like just two? First
Yeah.
physics, and then
And then geography.
And then geography.
Then the human geography, and then after which I decided that you know what I want to take this experience in geography, in human geography, and take it to a more scientific level. So that's essentially how I became an environmental scientist.
On tangent though, what does human geography entail?
Human geography is basically for one, let's first discuss what geography even is, because a lot of people
Yeah. Actually, a lot of people get that wrong.
a lot of people get what geography is wrong, and I have had my fair share of people randomly coming up to me when I just graduated from that course, and me saying, "Oh, what's the capital of X country?" for example.
Oh God.
Yeah, I've had to deal with a lot of people asking me that question before. But in essence, geography is basically the study of anything that goes on the surface of the earth. Basically, it can be literally transport. It can be the climate. It can be how people move and interact with each other. How culture works. Anything. It's like the science of anything, as long as
It's a science of human. It's a human interaction.
it's a
science.
human interaction science. Yes.
Basically.
So that's basically what it is. And human geography specifically pertains to just the interactions that we as humans do. What do we do with the environment? What does the environment do with us? And how does both of those interact with each other? Um, and then I took my master's degree in environmental science. At first, I didn't think that I'd do well, but I did. And I think that's the running theme, actually. I just am placed in a situation where I have to figure out what to do, and then I do it. That's basically my entire scientific career in a nutshell, basically. And
Well, it got you places at least.
it got me places. And that's how I got my own full circle, my own full
circle
circle
moment.
story.
Yeah.
In that, I ended up working somewhat in the close field of health sciences anyway, because of my experience working as an air pollution scientist during my grad school years. And I think that's the track that I'm currently finding myself in now. I'm going to LGUs and then just telling them, okay, so this is what you want to do, and this is how you're, what possible things are there, and here's how you're going to be able to do them. So that's my full circle moment.
Okay. So in my case, I ended up as a physicist out of initially arrogance. Yes.
A pure sense of arrogance from what?
No. Here's the thing. Ever since I was like back in elementary, it is a fact that okay, oh anak, anong gusto mo maging paglaki mo? Like what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be an astronaut. And then I went multiple tangents along the way. It turns out that okay, I am really good at memorizing shit. I'm really good at spelling. My English is near impeccable, or so as I like to believe. So I ended up going to Philippine Science High School, and then everyone else was better than me there, so I kind of slumped. Although I think me slumping, my slump was more of a comfortable I don't need to be the best all the damn time. But then, well, during high school, there was one fact that I could not escape. It was that I was better at biology than I was at physics. In fact, I sucked at math. I was like, if you rank my science subjects back in high school, I was best at biology, okay at chemistry, although, well, I do have some reservations with chemistry. And then finally, I absolutely sucked at physics. So why did I take physics? Simple. It's the hardest thing to take. I did it out of sheer arrogance. like I'm bad at math, I'm bad at physics, why don't I take math and physics? So I ended up going to physics, and well, it just turns out that I really like physics more than the other fields. Like, as simple as that. I like dealing with physical models, I like classical mechanics, like, the thing is, kasi with physics, is that when you're not even a physicist, you're just an undergrad. There's this air of mystery about it. Like, why is this? Why is this law this physical law, etc.? So, well, even up until now, I'm still a chuny. But,
What's a chuny?
huh?
What's a chuny?
It's basically someone with. It's basically. It's hard to explain, actually. How do you explain being a chunibyo? But, essentially, like, I like to look cool.
You've always liked to look
I've
cool.
always liked to look cool, even up until now. I like to think of myself as being more important than what I actually am. But like physics has that sort of mystery to it that's like, oh, you shall learn the secrets of the universe. And then as you progress through undergraduate physics, it's like I am learning more and more mysteries of the universe. Except the fact that if you consider those mysteries of the universe as mysteries, you probably still don't know what they are. So by the time you graduate undergrad, you're like, you are halfway between being an actual physicist and still mystified by physics. Eh. Since there are certain levels of mystification in physics, I'm already at the point where it's not a mystery so much more as an appreciation of the elegance of the models. The mystery is more of, okay, what more do we need to uncover at this point? So why did I become a physicist? Out of sheer arrogance. But gradually, as I got to undergrad, as I got to my thesis stage in undergrad, and even up until when I graduated my master's, like never expected that I would end up back in astrophysics. Like full circle of life. I wanted to become an astronaut when I was young. And then I went through the motions, and then finally somehow, some way I ended up being an astrophysicist again. Wow. Although I've never published anything. That's the difference between me and Hez. Due to my sheer laziness and at the same time my perfectionism, I have not published a single thing. Even up until my graduation and my MS graduation.
One thing that you will learn in the field of research is that you will be forced to think in a way that it's better to have a thing that's done compared to a thing that's perfect.
Yeah, that's true, that's true.
Which is the reason why I actually have published the paper. It's because my advisor would not get off of my case. And let's not talk about this a lot more because it's just going to derail the conversation at hand.
Actually, I'd want to go into that tangent a bit as well because onting chismis lang. Ma'am Gay is also like telling Harry to publish at least. And here's the thing that I told Harry. For all of Ma'am Gay's misgivings, the publication is one thing that would benefit you the most. Eh. So at least complete that.
Well, our audience might not know what's going on here.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine. That's fine. I think this is literally just you walking in on us anyway. So.
Yeah. So now that we've talked about us as well, scientists in a sense, let's talk current events because thing is, okay, itagalog ko na to. Nung bata ka, Hez, well, actually, you probably have a sort of healthier, quote unquote, experience with regards to this. But what was the reaction of your parents or general family members when, okay, you're going into science?
When I was going into science,
Yeah. Oh, no. First going into geography and then going to science.
I am not. Okay, I will admit this though, at least. Let's put a very big disclaimer in front of this. I am not your usual kid. I am also not. I don't also have usual parents. And by that, I mean, I was raised into a community of scientists
Yeah.
as a kid. So, everyone, every single person who was friends with my family, neighbors, people I grew up with, their parents were all scientists to some capacity. It just so because there's a very particular reason for this, and that's the fact that one, I was raised in a place that is literally known as the Science City of Muñoz in Nueva Ecija. It is where the Central Luzon State University is, and that kind of environment where if you are going to work in that city, it is likely because you're working either in the university or you're working as an actual officer or staff of a certain scientific research institute that was based in that city. The other reason was that my father had taken his PhD degree in the Chiba University in Japan. And so did a few of my neighbors. Or rather, what happened was actually, after they had graduated from Chiba University in Japan, they had moved here to the same city. And naturally, there's a big community of just scientists from different backgrounds, and then they all just mingle together in that space.
Well, if it's more like an it's no way Isiha. So it's more or less a agricultural center,
Yes, yes it is.
and most of those scientists that pulled there are related to agriculture, right?
Yes, yes.
Oh, definitely. So you'd want a good. It's an ideal spot, basically,
It's an ideal spot.
to perform research, to perform agricultural research on.
But the thing is, it didn't matter too much that what my field wasn't going to be exactly the same as theirs as long as I was still doing science.
Oh, okay. So that's your case.
In my case, yes, they were very, very supportive of this. And it almost seemed like that anyone who raises a family in that area, or at least where I'm from specifically, that community, they would raise their kids to be scientists.
It means your sister on the same track.
Yes, basically. Yeah,
okay.
that would be the case, yes.
So my case is more of a typical Filipino families. Since here's the thing, they treated me as a fascination. Like, this kid knows how to do science. When in reality, I was just memorizing every single thing that was taught to me. Like as I said, I have really good memory. But that was my only strong point, perhaps, back when I was a kid. So essentially, when some of my relatives recommended that I go to Philippine Science, okay, my parents were very gung-ho about it. In fact, I took an exam in Pisay. I also took an exam in UPLB for UP Rural. I passed both, but I decided to go to Pisay. And then this is where I'd want to actually get into our first topic. How do we treat science and scientists in general in this country anyway? I mean, in your case, you were in the no. It's not really in your case in particular, but in general,
In general, yes.
we have to start when we're talking about Philippine issues. We have to start at the familial level because in the Philippines, we consider the family as the core unit of society.
Our culture basically is very much centered on what your family thinks about you,
Yeah.
how you interact with your family, how the extended parts of that family interact with each other. It's very
Yeah.
connection based, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it matters for all aspects of society, including the view of science. Because my family essentially treated me as some sort of a fascination, in the sense that okay, this kid can do science. Well, they thought I could do science at least, and this kid. Well, at least they were correct about one thing. This kid has the drive for science. I do. I do have the drive, but the general view of scientists, or rather kids being brought up to be scientists, kids being encouraged to do science, is that people have this really vague idea that you're going to be smart, and only later on in life, as you as a scientist progress through that, it's not a it's not a guarantee, basically. Since, okay, sure, they call me smart, whatever, but it's not a one-to-one correspondence. Eh. Just because you're smart doesn't mean you're going to become a scientist. I know a ton of smart people who aren't scientists in the traditional hard scientific sense. Similarly, a lot of scientists aren't smart per se, but they are very experienced, very well trained. Not smart in the childhood sense.
And I'd like to share my experience about this because I experienced both of those perspectives at the same time.
Ah, okay.
The interesting thing is that while my parents had been normalized to this whole thing, that there is no real mystery to science. It's just a thing that people do, people study, and then they train, and then they get good at their jobs.
Yeah, it's just like any other profession,
It's
basically.
like any other profession. So when I was raised, I always felt a sense of normalcy, at least in that sense that
In that setting.
in that setting. But when we're dealing with the general population, or rather the ecosystem of elementary school or high school in general, or any academic setting that was pre-college,
Yeah.
you're going to encounter other parents, and other parents do not think the same way. The two very vastly different frames that I've encountered are my general folks treating me as if I'm fine, and the more general population who think that ay, ang genius ng batang to. And this this image never actually left me. It still is a thing about me in my hometown to this day. Ah, it's that genius kid Hez.
Same. Some
So-
people
so-
some people still think of me as like, oh look. It's that guy who won a ton of awards, etc.
In my case, my childhood came at a very specific point in media history, and that was a certain pharmaceutical company. I think Wyatt is a pharmaceutical company, right?
I consider them a pharmaceutical.
Yeah. Suddenly started advertising their formula product.
Alright.
I was raised on formula. I was a pro milk kid.
Oh wait, you were in a Pro Milk Kid commercial?
I'll get to that. I wasn't, but I'm getting at something very similar to this.
Okay.
However, I may not have been in a pro milk commercial, but I was categorized as one of those quote unquote gifted children who were all the rage in 2006, 2007.
Yes, I remember that time.
I was featured on a certain issue that is a clipping of which is framed in my house when I was age 10, an interview. I went all the way to Makati to have get interviewed by Smart Parenting magazine. The interview basically wanted the audience to make sense that these kids are also just normal kids.
Okay, so it's more of a at least normalizing.
So
yeah.
so I can't fault the
Yeah, you can't fault them.
them, but that kind of thinking didn't really help all that much because I still was invited to this like super exclusive, not really exclusive, but they always hold meetings in some
Mensa?
not Mensa, Philippine what's it called, the I attended our family attended meetings for that for a while, but eventually it became really clear to us that what's the point? This kind of othering that I've
Yeah, yeah.
experienced really took a toll on me by the time I got to when I was finished with my high school education, because I really felt so isolated from everyone else. Because I was just treated as this. Oh, okay. I guess if you're a science, you're really really into science, and that means you're smart. And then there's also the angle that, oh, I was like this. I'm just somehow supposed to be better, and then I'm just not. It just does sometimes get a little rough with that.
Yeah. Since, well, you could think of it this way.
The bottom line is, and this is the thesis that we're going to go with this. The first point that we'd like to point out in this discussion about how people treat scientists in this country is that we expect our scientists to be really good at what they do
Yeah, yeah.
and to basically give all of their capability to doing
Yeah.
what they're doing.
Well, apart from that, there's also a really common misconception about what scientists are supposed to do. But we'll get to that on when we start talking about the importance of research. Because right now we're just looking first as scientists as people in a sense. Although we will take another angle at it at the very end of the science segment, which would be on mental health. So one thing that I'd like to point out is, do you think up until now, there's still an air of mystery regarding how science is done
Yes.
in Philippine society?
Yes. Very much so.
Yeah. What do you think contributes to that, though?
Why does it feel impenetrable? It feels...
Okay, here's
No, sorry,
here's
not
a good point.
Maybe not really impenetrable. It feels like there's steering. There's
Yeah.
steering involved. It's like, oh, I am built for this. This is what I am capable of. There's an expectation
Yeah.
that is probably drilled into us by the education system or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But by the end of elementary school, I think it's pretty clear to us that kids will see themselves as being capable of something, but that something isn't always science.
Yeah. Well, that's a natural thing.
But that's a good thing that at least now they're better with it because of the whole introduction of the multiple intelligences
Yeah.
in education.
Yeah.
But the thing is,
But for our generation and
Spec-
generations before that,
anyone who did go into science was always met with an image that is different.
yeah.
It takes some idea, some difference for a kid to deliberately go into science.
Yeah, yeah.
That's where the mystery is.
Going back to the point of elementary, like back when I was in LM, I had my own ivory tower. It was the library. In fact,
I think that's an experience that
no. Here's the thing. I had such a special status that I didn't even need to go to class most of the time. Yes.
When was it? When was this?
Elementary.
All of it. All of it.
Sometimes, some days, I didn't need to go to class.
I developed this reputation myself when I was grade 6.
Mine, no. I developed it all throughout,
All around.
from grades 1 to 6. Simply because I was preparing for contests.
Actually, that's the same reason. That's the same reason why.
Oh, see? And I think that's also, that contributes to an image in a sense.
Yeah, because we're being treated like
We're being treated... No. It's not really more of the... Well, it's in part the treatment. Like, you're treating your students as
achievement bearers.
achievement bearers as opposed to people who are supposed to learn. But at the same time, let's say you have a class of 20 students. One of them isn't always there simply because he or she, they are training for
MTAP, for example.
MTAP, for example, or some quiz bee. So when they get, well, and the few times that they're back in the classroom, what's the image that the other students have with regards to you?
I probably already know all of this.
See?
In fact, I think some of them would rather me be not there because they think that if I was there, I would be hugging the entire conversation to myself.
Or, as in my case, sometimes I just get everything correct. I just get everything correctly without anyone else having the opportunity to, I don't know, try.
Maybe that's
That's
definitely a thing.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing. Like the state of overachieving. So how did we get here from discussing science? Well, it's a foundational thing kasi.
Why are people who go into science
Yeah.
looked at as if there's an air of mystery about them?
Yeah. But then let's try to graduate a bit from the elementary case. Because the elementary case is really like, okay, this kid probably already has a career track in science. But what about when we start at high school? I cannot speak anything for this yet. I want to hear your side first because I came from Pisay, where everyone was expected as a career scientist.
I don't want to get into the gory details of this because this is high school for me is a very
It's
private,
a very private experience.
it's a very
for-
private experience.
But your general observations.
I was
Did you have any folks like around your batch or probably a batch higher or lower that also had this is gonna be a scientist kind of treatment?
not naturally. This only came about because of a little thing called the a career aptitude examination.
Okay.
It's not the NCAE because that's basically given to grade 6 students.
Yeah.
It's a thing that was present in my school. Some analytics company probably came to our high school and administered these career aptitude tests, and it was there that started it.
Okay.
It was after I had gotten the results of that test that the conversation actually started with the students. That, oh, I'd be really fitting for a career in science. Unfortunately, the notable thing was that only around 2 to 3 people got that result
Okay.
of being adapted to a scientific career.
But yeah, like so few people,
Only a few people.
yeah, were deemed appropriate to enter STEM courses.
So what happened after that was we started getting pulled away for specifically
Oh.
for
okay.
specifically so that's why our
So sort of like an honors.
yeah we got
honors
we got
track.
assigned to an honors track afterwards. We were all assigned LTS training in high school because our high school did not have a CAT track.
Okay.
We were all sent to the LTS by default because, well, we were the only people who could basically LTS.
Yeah, definitely.
So what happened with us was,
or at least thought of to LTS. Like, what was your experience with doing LTS anyway?
I literally tutored grade 5 through 7 students, yes. In maths, sciences, and social sciences.
How did that fare?
Very well, actually, surprisingly.
Oh, very well. Okay. Well, it's a tutoring. Teaching is actually very different from tutoring.
Yeah,
so.
tutoring, only tutoring. It was only like a reviewer session for around 1-2 hours at a time.
Okay. Anyway, the case for Pisay is actually fairly different. Because everyone there is expected to be a career scientist. Thing is, I have a ton of batchmates who did not pursue science afterwards. Either immediately, once they graduated, or after a few years in college when they realized, nah, this isn't for me. And that also contributes to the general stigmatization of science, I guess. Like, if I think about it, why were some of my batchmates, why were some of my classmates forced into Pisay in the first place? Science in the Philippines actually has several facets to it. One is mystery, the other one is prestige. It's weird we prize intelligence as mechanical, we prize mechanical intelligence as a status symbol, not even as a utility.
As a status symbol.
Yeah, you're so smart, therefore you have authority. Authority on what? You're just smart.
An interesting experience came to me about this because an experience with talking to one of my relatives, and something about the way he talked about getting a degree felt very off to me.
What did they say?
They were mentioning, because we're all in a car together with my cousins, and one of them had just graduated an MS degree, and one of my cousins was considering getting a PhD degree.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the place where she wants to get the PhD degree is she can't apply for it yet. She needs a few more qualifications, like work experience, to actually get into that program,
Okay.
for a scholarship at least.
Okay.
And so she's decided to take another gap year for just working
Okay.
before getting a PhD degree.
Reasonable.
It's a very reasonable thing. But then my relative said that, why are you spending so much effort on a PhD degree that you can just get at another university in half the time? For
In
a two,
In half the time?
essentially a 2-year course versus a 4-year course.
Okay. But, okay, so what's the objection there?
Get a PhD as soon as you can, because you're just gonna get into a lot of work. You're gonna be more qualified on your CV. It's a thing that you put on your CV.
Well, in fairness kasi, he's technically correct in that aspect that you would want to get a PhD for the credentials because the PhD is technically a license to do research, independent research.
It's not even for the research, because my that cousin is an engineer.
So you want a PhD to look good for corporate work?
Yes.
A PhD is useless in corporate work. Like functionally speaking.
Maybe this relative doesn't even know that it's useless,
Yeah.
but it will still...
Yeah, but that's a general problem. Like Anton also mentioned this PhDs are decorative in this country.
Maybe let's rework this conversation to emphasize that fact that there is a very definite set of familial values where you want your kid to be successful, you just pack on degrees on top of degrees
Yeah.
until you eventually get the doctorate degree, the PhD.
I mean, when I was young, I wanted a PhD in physics and mathematics and
And that's an interesting thing. Why does it seem that you can just get more always?
well, technically I can, but
Technically, one person could, but why? Right? We just think by default that more is
Is better.
necessarily better.
yeah, like the more PhDs to your name that you stack up, like you're a PhD, you're an MD, you're whatever this title is.
Yeah, that's kind of a joke already. Actually,
Yeah.
that's a kind of a family joke that I've heard a lot about. Daig kayo ng anak ko.
na may ganitong karaming
Yeah,
suffixes.
there's lots of like skits in TV that basically go like, oh, we are grandparents arguing over which one of our children has more credentials.
Yeah.
And then add to that our unfortunate obsession with adding prefixes to our names.
Yeah. Like Nota. Whenever I ghostwrite letters ni Perry, because sometimes I need to, especially things that he needs to sign, I rarely attach his PhD title. I rarely do.
You rarely do.
Especially if I'm addressing it to people of the same rank.
In my case, since I've also had to ghostwrite letters for my supervising advisor.
Yeah.
Considering that the targets are all the addressees
Yeah.
of the letters are almost always LGU persons, client representatives. By default, I've just become used to it because
Yeah.
I'm just more in tune to the fact that, okay, maybe I mean that's kind of part of your title, so I guess I have to write it because I think if I don't, I'll probably get yelled at or something. That I need to put the PhD at the end because that's just part of the title. That's just part of how you address.
No, wait, no. If I'm addressing, yes, I will attach the title. But if I am writing on behalf of, like, let's say my advisor, for example, then sincerely, I won't attach the PhD title.
Oh, because I've had to do that. I've had to do that.
Okay, okay. In my case, I don't. Hell, have you ever attached M.Sc to your name? I have never attached M.Sc to my name.
My advisor has told me to.
But that's on your advisor's instructions.
Yes.
Me, I don't.
My current email signature has MSc attached to it. Well, for the academic email at least.
I should do that. Anyway, just to make sure that I don't look like an undergrad.
Yeah. I think the very reason for this is because
You don't want to look like an undergrad.
yeah.
But yeah. So, how did we get here?
Alright, so we have tackled the objectification of sorts of science.
Yeah.
In first the elementary school level, now the high school level,
Now let's look beyond that. In
Let's-
the collegiate and the
general society. no?
general society at large. Okay. I'd want to go on a bit of tangent first. In the Philippines, for some people who don't know, our scientists get killed in field.
Okay, so we've just
We went straight into that for good reason.
there is an unfortunate track record of certain breeds of well, not really breeds, some certain kinds of scientists.
Field scientists, in
Field
particular,
scientists, very specifically field scientists, who go into remote areas and are killed for some reason.
Yes. They don't die of mysterious causes.
No,
they don't
they are-
die of natural causes. No. They,
they are
are
murdered.
killed. They are murdered while doing their work. I think that's telling enough of how we treat our scientists, to be honest. In general
By
society.
itself,
It's telling.
even before we add in the political context to this.
Even without adding in the political context. Since here's the thing. We already discussed objectification of science in general.
Of science, yes.
In this country. Now, what does that lead to?
Scientists as tools.
Yeah,
They are literal tools.
yeah.
I mean, it's a sentiment that me and several others in my field,
IESM,
in IESM, or
the Institute of Environmental Sciences and Meteorology.
They might not say it outright.
It's not
if you ask them.
It's not outright, and I don't think they actually intend it to be that way. But the general structure feels like that, at least for you guys. In physics, kasi we're a bit healthier with regards to that aspect.
It's more of it's not because of of how ISM is run itself. It's more of where we go. It seems that we are treated as tools.
Yeah,
And ISM is it's a pretty important fixture in the College of Science right now because
it has to be.
it houses, or rather it partially houses one of the components of the Philippine microsatellite project,
Yeah.
which is a very high stakes project that the Philippine government and just the general Philippine scientific community is taking on. Because
It's extremely important for
Because-
all sectors.
yeah, for all sectors, because there's lots of information that we can get from looking at the Earth from space.
Yeah, like you were an RS guy, so
I
or are you still an RS guy?
not in my current job.
Yeah, but you know the RS, but you know
I have the
details.
skill set of an RS guy. Yes.
Yeah, you know how to do the remote sensing, so you know the importance of having instruments up there. So yeah,
And yet, all the clients think of us as is information dispensaries.
yeah,
And that's almost, well, if not almost, outright dehumanizing at least. And that's something that I personally have a little bit of misgivings towards. Because we're not people telling you what to do. But the problem is, because we're not people telling you what to do, clients almost always either end up ignoring our advice or following our recommendations for the sake of making it look like you're following the rules. you're complying to the standards, but only so that it looks like you.
Yeah.
And once that prestige has run out, it's like it's never happened.
Yeah. Like you're just tossed off again.
And then they're probably going to just hire the next set of scientists to do work that's going to look good on the client's profile. And
Yeah.
then the cycle just continues on and on and on.
Yeah. Okay, I think now we need to go into the tangent of research in general. The importance of research. Because, okay, so going back to the scientists that are killed, because for me this is a very specific peeve. Well, not even a peeve. I'm actually pissed that people get killed on duty for just doing their job that's not even supposed to risk their lives in general.
And the worst part is that both of us are vulnerable to this
We're
because of our fields.
no. You're you especially.
Well, me especially, yes.
I'm a theoretical astrophysicist, so I'm not particularly at risk. I'm at risk for my opinions at least. But
But me actually going to the field, yes.
yes, you are at high risk. But most especially older scientists in general are at higher risk. Eh. But let's think about it.
Older career decorated scientists.
Yeah,
for some
decorated
reason.
scientists. Like, especially people working in marginalized areas.
That's actually the commonality. Eh?
It is.
All of those who were killed were working in marginalized areas for some reason.
Yeah. Of course, we don't want to talk too much about that. Otherwise, shit would happen.
Yeah.
But let's think about it first in the aspects of research. The field scientists who were killed, what were they doing? What were they doing?
What were they doing?
What were they doing research on?
Environment usually.
Yes, it's usually environmental research. And most of the time, actually, those guys are cutting edge in their fields.
Leonard Coe was the only plant taxonomist working in that niche.
Yeah.
Right? Parang ganun.
Yeah. That's a good example, Leonard Coe. And you just kill off the guy? So how are we... So, what about... What of all of the things that he's done?
Of all things, yes.
Yeah, like... How are we treating research? Like, what is research for? How do we define research? It's the gathering of knowledge, basically, for the sake of scientific analysis. If our researchers get killed on... well, it's not... At least it's not regular. But
It's not zero.
it's not zero. How are we treating research in this country? Now we get to the point of... Now we get to two different points. First is on Deng Baksha. And then next is on Cynthia Villar's comments on research during the Senate hearing. Let's go first to Deng Baksha first. Let's go first to Deng Baksha though. What led to the Deng Baksha scare?
So let's quickly recap, I guess.
Yeah.
So around a few years ago, a drug trial, is it?
2016-ish.
Yeah, 2016-ish. There was a trial of
Yeah. There was a drug trial of a dengue vaccine.
of a dengue vaccine.
Yeah. Now what were the results?
The results were mostly positive, actually.
Yeah, were
surprisingly.
mostly positive. But then there were a few deaths
That were unexplained, actually.
unexplained. And then somehow attributed to...
to the vaccine itself.
But who was attributing it to the vaccine?
A case was filed. I think there was a case that was filed against the Department of Health. I di ko alam kung ano. Wait, maybe
Yeah,
we should let's look it up.
we need to look it up. So the Deng Baksha controversy, well, this is just Wikipedia, but
The fact that we actually have a dedicated Wikipedia page to this is kind of telling, actually.
yeah, and their sources are all news sites. So it's easy to look at it.
Okay.
So it's an ongoing controversy. Actually, it is, sort of. Like, the after effects of the Deng Baksha controversy still contribute to a scare in vaccines, a slight rise in the anti-vax movement here in the Philippines.
and actual measles outbreaks.
Yes.
Actual measles outbreaks, actual polio outbreaks.
Yeah, that pisses me off.
Like, we should have killed this disease long ago.
Yeah. Anyway, so it began late November 2017 after the Department of Health suspended the school-based dengue vaccination program utilizing French drug-based vaccine makers Sanofi Pasteur's Dengvaxia vaccine. After reports circulated regarding several children dying after various complications allegedly attributed to the dengue vaccine. These allegations are okay. The controversy stems from the public attorney's office versus the Department of Health.
Oh, this is a more comprehensive timeline, actually.
Okay, yeah. It's on Wikipedia, and then there's an external link to the comprehensive timeline.
Okay.
So, what is the timeline? Ano?
Okay.
Like, just the headings.
Just the headings.
Yeah.
2014. Dengvaxia successfully completes its 2 parallel phase 3 clinical studies, which
Where?
The Philippines was among the 10 countries that took part in this study.
Okay. So, we were part of the trial study.
We were part of the trial study, but this was
As far back as 2014.
2014.
Okay.
November 9th. Then President Benigno Aquino III meets Sanofi Senior Vice President in the Asia region, Jean-Luc Lewinsky, at the Philippine Embassy in Beijing, China. June 9th, 2015. Then Health Secretary Janet Garin negotiates with Sanofi to reduce the cost of buying the vaccines. A deal. A deal was reached, definitely. That's one of the knowns.
Well, I think that's important to reduce the cost of the vaccine, definitely. Because we as a country that has a ton of mosquitoes, should at least have access to this vaccine on a widespread scale.
Yeah. October 29th, Sanofi Pasteur applies at the DOH for Dengvaxia to be included in the Philippine National Formulary. A list of drugs that all pharmacies in the Philippines must carry, pending approval by the FDA.
Yeah, okay, that's standard procedure.
December the 1st, Aquino and Garin meet Sanofi officials during the UN Conference on Climate Change in Paris, France. December 10th, Garin submits a proposal to the Budget Department to buy 3 million doses of Dengvaxia. December 22nd, the Philippines grants marketing approval to Dengvaxia, making it the first vaccine to be licensed for the prevention of dengue in Asia.
Wait, we were the first
We were the first.
to adopt it.
Yeah, okay, we were the first to adopt it. Kung masusunod din 2015, yes.
Okay.
The FDA approves the drug for all the prevention of disease caused by all 4 dengue types. 4?
Yeah, there are 4 strains.
In individuals from 9 to 45 years old living in high-risk areas. December 28th, the DOH Family Health Office submits a request to Garin to exempt Dengvaxia from being included in the Philippine National Formulary. This excludes it from review by the Formulary Executive Council, which determines what drugs are included on the list.
Okay, that's the reckless move right there by the Aquino administration. That's a legitimate criticism of the Dengvaxia release. Sure, we need it immediately, but to accept it from general procedures even after the trials is a bit risky. And I think that contributed to the scare.
December the 29th, the Budget Department issues a 3.5 billion special allotment release order to Garin's office to purchase the vaccines.
Okay.
January the 21st, Philippine Children's Medical Center makes a 3 billion purchase order for the vaccines without approval from the FEC. February 3rd, 2016, Garin issues a certificate of exemption for Dengvaxia vaccines to be utilized in the pilot implementation in the NCR Region 3 and Region 4A.
So essentially, we're doing another test run. But yeah, okay. I think I remember the general details on the news back then regarding the Dengvaxia vaccine.
This is the part that we know.
At this point, yeah.
This point is the.
At this point, we already knew what was occurring.
February 11th, the Philippines under Health Secretary Janet Garin hosts the nationwide launch of Dengvaxia. This is public.
Yeah.
This is the first publicized mention.
Yeah.
March, the World Health Organization releases a paper saying Dengvaxia, quote, may be ineffective or may even increase that risk in those who are seronegative at the time of first vaccination, end quote.
Okay.
Seronegative patients pertains to people who have not yet had dengue. The World Health Organization calls for more studies into the vaccine. March 8th, Garin issues a 3 billion disbursement voucher to the PCMC to fund the purchase of the vaccines. March 9th, the PCMC issues its purchase order to Zwellig Pharma, the distributor of the vaccine.
Yeah.
April
Zwellig.
4th,
Kliyente namin sa
sa
trabaho.
April 4th, the government kicks off its 3.5 billion school-based dengue immunization program. The health department says students would be given 3 doses administered every 6 months. July, the WHO releases another paper saying Dengvaxia, quote, may act as a silent natural infection that primes seronegative vaccinees to experience a secondary-like infection upon their first exposure to the dengue virus, end quote. In other words, the body says the vaccine, quote, may be ineffective or may theoretically even increase the future risk of hospitalized or severe dengue illness in those who are seronegative at the time of first vaccination, regardless of age, end quote. The same month, former Health Secretary Pauline Ubial issues a resolution temporarily suspending the school-based dengue immunization program. Only the first 489,003 pupils who received the first dose would take the second and third doses. September 2016, the Health Department moves to continue the vaccination program. That same month, the Medical Research Council Center for Outbreak Analysis and Modeling at Imperial College London releases a study saying Dengvaxia could lead to an increase in the number of cases of the disease if not implemented correctly. Quote, unlike most diseases, the second time you get dengue, it's much more likely to be severe than the first time you get it, end quote.
That's true.
Said the center's director, Neil Ferguson. October 2016, the Singapore Health Sciences Authority flags postulated risk of Dengvaxia. Quote, as the vaccine is more effective in those who had previous dengue infection, and that there's a postulated risk of severe dengue in those who do not have past dengue infections when they become infected, it said. End quote. November 2016, the House of Representatives probes the allegedly anomalous purchase of the Dengvaxia vaccines. Its draft report of the Committee on Health, the DOH reported there were 30 cases from March 18 to August 20 of 2016 that were considered as serious cases that needed hospitalization.
After administering Dengvaxia?
After.
Okay.
Of the 3 deaths it monitored, 2 were not related to the immunization program.
Okay.
At the time, so there were 30 cases that needed to be admitted to the hospital. 3 of them died, but 2 of them were not related at all to this program.
This according to the official coroners that were...
Yes, official.
No. This is me directly quoting from the news.
The panel directed the DOH to check the medical records of a certain Christine de Guzman who died months after taking the vaccine. It also recommended that the DOH temporarily suspend the expansion of the vaccination program pending completion of data collection, evaluation, and analysis on adverse effects.
Okay, that's reasonable.
December, the Senate launches its own investigation into the vaccines.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Saying the project cost was too big and was approved without congressional approval, which is true.
Yes, it is true.
November 29 next year, 2017, Sanofi Pasteur announces the results of the new clinical data analysis, which found that Dengvaxia is more risky for people not previously infected by the virus. Quote, for those not previously infected by dengue virus, however, the analysis found that in the longer term, more cases of severe disease could occur following vaccination upon a subsequent dengue infection, end quote. December 1, following the announcement by Sanofi Pasteur, Health Secretary Francisco Duque III orders the temporary suspension of the dengue vaccination program. Note that 2017 na to, the administration has already changed.
Yeah, it's already Duterte.
PRRD na. Duque says 733,713 children from Central Luzon, the region of Cavite, Laguna, Batangas, Rizal, Quezon, and Metro Manila were administered Dengvaxia. 8 to 10%, or about 70,000 of these children have not had dengue yet. December 4, the Justice Department orders the NBI to look into the dengue vaccination program.
Clusterfuck.
December 5, the FDA suspends the sale and distribution of Dengvaxia. The WHO denies that it recommended countries to use Dengvaxia in their national immunization programs. December 6, Health Department says more than 800,000 students have received the vaccine, which is a contrast. It's a higher number compared to what was reported by Duque previously. It is now monitoring 40 cases of children who fell seriously ill, up from 30 in 2016 and 9 deaths in specifically 2017. December 7th, the health department says it will return around 800,000 leftover Dengvaxia vaccines worth 1.4 billion to Sanofi. December 8th, the health department calls for a refund of the 3.5 billion it paid for the vaccines, adding it has created a task force to look for ilang independent bodies ngayon. Too much.
Yeah.
The same day, the House and the Senate announced that they will again investigate the dengue vaccination program. The dengue vaccination probe opens December 11th. Former Secretaries Janet Garin and Pauline Ubial, as well as Health Secretary Francisco Duque III and Sanofi officials among those present. Before the start of the hearing, former Health Secretary Enrique said Garin, his successor, was, quote, solely responsible, end quote, for the Dengvaxia issue. Meanwhile, Garin says the purchase of the vaccines was, quote, above board, end quote. December 14, 2017, Aquino, under whose administration the deal was approved, attends the Senate hearing on the vaccine program. Aquino claims no one advised him against procuring Dengvaxia, with Health Reform Act advocate Dr. Anthony Leachon saying, tama ba pronunciation ko nito?
Let me read.
Leachon
Leachon.
Leachon? Saying that the former president cannot be faulted if he was given misleading information on Dengvaxia.
It's actually on part of Sanofi.
Sanofi was partially to blame here because
Yeah.
Of course they were not going to give away that information to them because they're clients eh.
Yeah.
Tas WHO pa yung dapat na nagsabi na sila pa yung which saka pa lang nag-prompt ang Sanofi to make an investigation of their own once na pressure na sila ng WHO.
Yeah.
Once the WHO pressures you, you have to eh.
You have to comply.
You have to comply. Presidential spokesperson at the time, Harry Roque, says that President Rodrigo Duterte believes the program was done, quote, in good faith, end quote, adding that Duterte would have done the same. Meanwhile, Ubial reveals that Garin's husband, Representative Oscar Garin Jr., pressured her to continue the rollout of the vaccine program.
Strange.
January 19th, 2018. At an event in San Fernando, Pampanga, Health Secretary Francisco Duque III confirmed that Sanofi Pasteur has refunded 1.16 billion pesos worth of unused Dengvaxia vaccines. However, Duque clarified the reimbursement does not put the French pharmaceutical company off the hook, adding the investigation continues on whether Sanofi withheld significant information on possible risks. January 4th, Sanofi Pasteur says it has complied with international and local laws and regulations when it launched Dengvaxia, saying it will continue to cooperate with the country's FDA. January 10th, the Public Attorney's Office conducts an autopsy on 5 vaccinated children who died. Dr. Erwin Erfe, director of the PAO Forensic Laboratory, says, while the findings are inconclusive, signs and symptoms, as well as the death, occurred within 6 months after the last Dengvaxia injection. A former DOH official, unnamed, claims 19 officials, including former Health Secretary Garin, were part of a, quote, mafia in the department. The mafia allegedly benefited from the Dengvaxia purchase, saying that 90% of the funds goes back to the DOH, while 10% is given to a supposed financier. Garin denies the allegations. January 26, Duque reveals health officials did not wait for the results of clinical trials of the Research Institute for Tropical Medicine, or the RITM, on Dengvaxia to know its risk before launching the nationwide immunization program. He also suggests Executive Order 674, which establishes the RITM. Sa atin ganito eh, di ba? Tayo yung PGH to eh.
Yeah.
Should
It's a UP directive.
should be reviewed to include possible conflicts of interests in its research activities in partnership with pharmaceutical companies. January 31, some parents in Zamboanga refused the DOH's deworming program due to the Denvacia scare.
Okay, here's where it starts.
During Duque's confirmation hearing before the Commission on Appointments, committee members questioned him over the existence of the DOH mafia. Duque denies the claims along with two other health officials who were supposedly involved. Health officials add the unused budget for the dengue vaccination program worth 556 million pesos is still with the PCMC, Children's Hospital. February 2, 2018, UPPGH, University of Philippines Philippine General Hospital experts panel reports that out of the 14 autopsies they conducted, 3 died due to the complications of dengue. 2 of those 3 dengue deaths could possibly be related to Denvacia failure, they say. However, the panel members suggest to have more tissue analysis on the bodies to come up with conclusive findings. They also call on parents of dengue victims to have the remains of their children to be examined only by legitimate forensic pathologists.
Yes. This is where the public attorney's office mess comes in. Because they have their own coroners and
They had their own coroners.
yeah.
A group of doctors from the East Avenue Medical Center also points out a decline in children's vaccinations against other diseases, such as the flu, polio, measles. The doctors attribute this decline to the Denvacia scare, but they maintain other vaccines are safe. February 5, Sanofi turns down the health department's demand to refund used dengue vaccine vials. It said agreeing to the demand will mean Denvacia does not work. The Denvacia maker also rejected the Department of Health's request to financially support hospitalized vaccinated children. Duque tells lawmakers that it will be up to the Justice Department to consolidate and reconcile the findings of the Public Attorney's Office and the UPPGH panel of experts.
Oh, God, fuck!
Meaning, nun pa lang, they were already at odds.
You're elevating this to the court?
PAO's findings state that the deaths showed, quote, strong links to Denvacia, although it added the results are inconclusive. Meanwhile, the findings by the UPPGH found no direct link between the deaths and the vaccine. The PAO also files a civil case against Garin.
Okay.
Former Undersecretary Kenneth Oy and other health officials of implementing the program in undue haste, even if, quote, the product has no proven safety and efficacy, end quote. Also included in the case are Sanofi and distributors Relic Pharma Philippines for failing to inform the public of the vaccine's risk. All in all, the PAO is seeking at least 4 million pesos in damages. February 6th, Senate Blue Ribbon Committee Chair Richard Gordon says he may recommend the filing of charges against Aquino, Garin, and other former officials over the Denvacia controversy. Quote, ang linaw ng paper trail and there is a direct causal connection, Gordon said in an interview following the panel's Tuesday hearing. Gordon noted the haste in the purchase of the dengue vaccine, which the government used for the 3.5 billion peso dengue vaccination program. It kicked off in April of 2016. Gordon said, yung lumalabas talaga, tuwing lalakad sa abroad, bumibilis yung papeles. Nagmamadali dun sa pagkuha ng FDA permit, pati yung Philippine National Formulary in-influence. End quote. End of article.
End of article. So that's the info so far.
So this is
on CNN.
On CNN up until February 6th. This was last updated February 26th.
Okay.
So meaning,
Last year.
So meaning if we need more recent information, kailangan we need to find another source.
Yeah.
Check ko yung source.
But I think we can get off on that. Because if you look at the general outlook of everything, there's a reason why Wikipedia also calls it a Denvacia mess.
Well, let's see.
It's such a clusterfuck. Like, obviously, vaccination.
I like that one of the immediate recommended articles is just Noli de Castro.
Oh God.
Because I think the media, specifically his radio show, has contributed to this a lot.
The media has contributed to the scare. Definitely. But I'm going to start talking about the general complications of vaccination all arise on the development stage. It should only be in the development stage.
Let's summarize the findings or rather the information that we had from from reading all of this.
Yeah.
So let's start by saying that from the beginning, there was already a certain there were certain bad actors that were already in play.
Yeah.
First, Sanofi did not completely publicize the details of the vaccine itself.
Yeah, of their vaccine itself.
While the Philippines was part of the initial drug trial,
Yeah.
we already passed the drug trial.
Yeah.
And yet, it was only until the World Health Organization
pressured.
pressured Sanofi with their own inquiry on the effectivity of the vaccine that they finally revealed that there were issues at all.
Yeah.
The other bad actor here is the procurement.
The procurement side in the Philippine government. But here's the thing. I can't actually blame the Philippine government too much on this. Because here's the thing. Dengue is a real threat in this country. It is a real threat in this country. So if you have like a shining beacon of hope, even if it's misty, even if hindi gaanong may umiilaw, like
Especially if you take into account that
it's a dengue vaccine.
It's
So-
a potential dengue vaccine.
Yeah.
And we could be the first in Asia to get it.
Yeah.
And of course, who's going to reject an offer from
Yeah.
the makers of the vaccine itself?
Yeah.
That we are going to give it to you first.
Yeah. So it's very tempting. It's very tempting. It's a really tempting deal. But we were not careful enough in doing a second analysis. Because, well, I don't always trust pharma. Like, especially if it's for a really experimental.
Or rather, had just been freshly approved.
Yeah, or a freshly approved drug. I
Or
would want a
vaccine in this case.
I would not. Well, vaccines are drugs. So for a vaccine, I would still want to test it thoroughly. Like, okay, then why don't we get a better sampling population here? Because we were just one. Essentially, we were just one test site for Sanofi's trials out of the entirety of Southeast Asia. But is it good on the local setting as a whole?
Especially if we consider how the UPPGH was treated in all of this.
Yeah, actually.
Because
Like-
one definite thing that we can say about it is that the government did not wait for the research, for the science.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a good point. It did not wait for the PGH go signal.
Or rather, the government basically decided that the PGH was taking too long.
Yeah. Okay, so here's an interesting point that we'd want to address. Why does science take so long in the perspective of policy? You could answer this best.
Why does it take so long? Because
Like,
here's the thing.
as a field scientist.
as a field scientist, just because a thing works elsewhere, it does not mean a thing will work here. What I've experienced as a field scientist is that officials of the government will always think that because a certain policy action or intervention or something works, they would want to copy it. They would always go ahead and want to copy something from a more advanced country or wherever. Most of the time, from my experience at least, a lot of these measures are very poorly thought out because they really don't take into account the actual conditions that are going on with the actual community level.
Yeah, the community level, the local setting.
The local setting. We're actually talking to the barangays. We're actually talking to the residents of the actual barangay, the families, the barangay officials, barangay health workers, everyone who's actually experiencing. There's a disconnect. There's always a disconnect between what a higher up wants, what is expected of us, the scientists, and what is actually going on the ground. ground truth is such an important thing to us field scientists
Yeah.
because we actually really need to know what's going on before we actually we can make an informed decision about what to do. And especially for something like this, for public health issues like vaccination, actually finding out if there are easily preventable, easier ways to prevent the
Infection.
infection, the cause or vectors otherwise.
Yeah.
A simpler way. If there are already more common sense solutions that just need to be more implemented, if there's a contaminated water source here, we can just like fix that first.
Yeah.
Other than
Just
randomly implementing some program.
Since okay, we have to agree on one thing though. Vaccination is also prevention. But
It's also being treated as a service.
yes.
One thing that always is a thing about local government officials, in any level really, is the fact that they treat public services as if they were a platform of theirs.
Oh yeah,
These
definitely.
are mandatory services that should be
That should be
provided.
that should be provided, and at the same time that should be well regulated.
Should be well regulated. And yet, somehow,
And they throw it out like candy. Sometimes to the detriment of quality.
to the detriment of quality,
Yeah.
and mostly as an election gambit.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the unfortunate mixing of science and politics here that
Yeah, here in the country.
really does contribute to how poorly ground field science is implemented.
Yeah. I mean, at least you guys had better luck on the LGU level. But this was a national implementation. And for a national implementation, you're going to...
You're going to encounter resistance in some parts.
Yeah,
Definitely.
but the problem is that you guys at the LGU level, like when you guys like when you in particular were working very closely with the LGU level, at the LGU level, they took it well.
They took it well. At least that one barangay that I went to. At least.
Yeah, at least one barangay that you went to took it well.
Or at least they actually are having progress.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that also means that because progress needed to have been made to push it back, that means they were affected also.
Yeah.
Um,
And note, like you guys probably did fairly thorough research on that level alone.
and even
So-
then, the interesting part is that the whole thing about the vaccinations, at least at the time, because I was in working for several cities or municipalities at the time, it's not even what we came there for.
Yeah.
At the time, I was still doing research on air pollution specifically. But the testimonies that were coming from all of the barangay health workers, all of the barangay officials.
Okay. This is you were working on air pollution, but you were also talking to the barangay health workers
And they
regarding vaccination.
No, they opened it up.
Oh, they
without-
told it to you guys like they were just ranting.
Yeah, they were, because it's become so much of a problem for them that to finally actually be able to talk with someone who understands their plight is
Like
Therapeutic to them.
therapeutic to them. Cathartic even.
it probably just did felt well to them that someone actually agrees,
Yeah.
because
Because from the perspective of the barangay health worker, what do they have to do in order to convince the parents that, okay, hindi po to dengvac siya.
or rather even
MMR po to.
it's not even that, it's more of these are people who had already vaccinated their kids before, even.
Okay.
These are people.
And then they were suddenly scared to continue their vaccinations.
Yeah. Or these are actually, the timelines are pretty different, but they all coalesce in a
Yeah.
nice way, because either you're a parent who had a previous child who you did give the full vaccinations to, and then you had another child, and then the vaccine scare happened, and then now you're suddenly concerned over whether to give this new child the vaccinations.
Yeah.
Or what you said about people
Yeah, like
interrupting their own, which is probably worse.
it's actually worse, yes. to interrupt your own vaccination cycle.
Yeah. Or people who were previously already convinced that the vaccinations are safe, having to who were convinced by other members who were scared off.
Yeah.
It's kind
So,
of
a herd mentality in a sense.
it's a little bit of a thought contagion in that sense.
Yeah.
But at least it didn't erupt into mass hysteria, which is something that.
But it still resulted in multiple cases of outbreak. It still resulted in outbreaks, though.
In Central Luzon, there was a very publicized measles outbreak.
Yeah.
It hit at least 6 provinces.
In Mindanao, polio.
Wasn't it?
Davao.
Southern. Okay. Also in there. Okay, sige. And this was October 2018, I'd like to say.
Yeah.
And the dengue vaccine scare was probably a little fresh still.
Yeah.
And the BHWs really were just kind of thankful that it didn't escalate to a level where everyone was outright rejecting all of the vaccines.
Yeah.
But still,
It's
it is definitely hurting them that the vaccination compliance for all types of vaccines had decreased
yeah.
significantly ever since that year, ever since the whole scandal had erupted.
Yeah.
And then they're basically sympathizing with us in a sense that ginagawa na nga lang natin yung trabaho natin. And I like that the barangay officials, most of which were actually pretty educated at least. And it's a good thing that that city is next to a city that has an SUC.
Okay. But yeah, let's look at it this way. At the LGU level, you guys already do a ton of work. What more is needed on the national level? So as we backtrack, Sanofi fucked up with regards to not releasing all of the relevant data, especially the side effects. And then the Philippine government fucked up because then it tried, okay, we want these vaccines, we want them now, and we will implement them now. I think that was the most
Poorly thought out.
yeah, it was the most poorly thought out part of the entire thing.
Like it doesn't even matter that there were later allegations about the whole finance, the whole
financing.
the whole finance.
That's
mafia thing.
that's politics.
That's politics.
Yeah.
And even then, it does little to assuage the fact that they still, even if all of the money had been clean,
Yeah.
it was still anomalous.
Yeah, it was still anomalous. It was still done way too fast. So it's a case of us. It's already one case of us ignoring good research. Because I'm pretty sure when PGH caught wind of the fact that we were trying to bring in Dingbaksha, they were immediately like, okay, guys, we need to study this.
We need to study this because we were the first Asian country to have implemented this.
Yeah.
Of course, the RITM probably does know that here in the Philippines, as a very intense hotbed for tropical diseases, period,
Yeah.
we need to research this.
Yeah.
They needed to research it.
Yeah.
But it's almost as if the government tired of hearing inconclusiveness from the RITM.
Oh, okay. Here's another point that I want to make. Whenever we say inconclusive, what does that mean?
Because the government always ask them. I think this is something that
It's actually a general thing. It's sort of a general barrier. Like this isn't just a Philippine problem, actually.
Okay.
When scientists say inconclusive, or rather, when scientists come to a conclusion in general, it's not the conclusion that the public
necessarily wants.
necessarily perceives. Halimbawa, in your publication, what's the conclusion?
What's the conclusion? I was developing a. Oh, sorry. Is this a? If we're going to ask about the air pollution study that I did,
The air pollution study.
is that we should definitely take steps to reduce the exposure of everyone really to charcoal smoke.
Okay, was that what you wrote? in the conclusion.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So that's a good example of good scientific writing. It's clear.
It's actually pretty definitive.
It's actually pretty definitive.
Yeah.
But most studies,
Well,
especially...
my data didn't leave room for much else, so...
Okay, good. But most studies, in general, really, from theory to even like, especially med, it always comes out as either inconclusive or it recommends you that to do this, or there is a high significance, a low significance, etc., etc. Thing is, why do we say it as such, actually? Why do you think we have to state degrees of certainty as scientists?
As scientists, because this is specifically for meds, for this kind of scenario.
Like for med, like let's say that med says there is a 90% success rate in this.
And I don't think we even got to that point, actually.
Yeah.
Since the idea behind the study for the dengue vaccine was, does this actually prevent people from catching dengue infection?
Yeah.
The thing is, you need a very long-term study.
Yeah.
You need several layers of testing,
Yeah.
several cohorts of testing, because you can't just like, here is the percentage of people who have gotten an infection after 12 months or something. But
Yeah.
no. And even then, actually, there was already doubt about the efficacy of the vaccine, because
Oh yeah.
because really, if you're testing something like this, it's not going to be a result that you necessarily say is very definitively conclusive that this works.
Yeah.
And especially because the vaccine was new. It had barely finished its clinical trial.
Yeah.
And there was no consensus. There was no scientific consensus on whether it had worked.
Oh yes, definitely.
And then the government was really pressuring, probably,
Yeah.
the PGH team to ask, does this work?
Does this work?
And even
PGH probably went like, okay, give us time.
This maybe would work. And
Yes.
they couldn't wait for that.
Yeah.
And I think there's a reason for this. And that's the fact that we expect scientists to actually have conclusive results about
And
this.
at a very short period of time. Okay, here's the thing. So let's go back to the point that one of the questions that I put out. Why does it take so long for us to do research in the first place? From a field scientist
From a field scientist's perspective,
Yeah.
or at least from the perspective of a field scientist who had freshly graduated masters,
Yeah.
who was incorporated into a research group, who was working for several clients, mostly LGUs.
This is directly from your experience.
We always are given very hard deadlines.
Yeah. So first, you need to answer. Why can't you meet those deadlines?
It takes so long because there's a lot of factors that go into it, but a lot of it revolves around the fact that actually getting to do the research isn't easy. It's not the actually doing the research. It's getting the permission to do the research.
Okay, so there's the bureaucracy part of
There's
it.
the bureaucracy part of it. There's the funding part of it. First, we need to have the permission. Second, we need to have the people.
Yeah. Understaffing.
We are so understaffed. The third is we need to have equipment, which we are also under-equipped because then, once we do the research, there's always the matter of expectations.
Okay.
And the expectation is this: there's always a meeting with whoever the client is, and they will always lay out the series of demands.
Yeah.
They will demand this from you, regardless of whether it is scientifically plausible to have this data or not. There is an expectation from us, the actual scientists.
The guys on field, the guys on the ground.
The expectation is we are sure that we are going to be able to do this with the resources that you have provided us. We will at least give you this. Unfortunately, this list is almost always not what the client wants. The client wants usually more. And this comes into very annoying returns later once the output is done and said, this is what you signed. This is what you
Signed up for.
what you signed up for. What this is what the
Client signed up for.
this
Or-
is what the client this is what the client signed up for. We have agreed to do this specifically because this is what we have told you that we should be
Yeah,
doing.
these are our projections.
These are our projections. And then they just say, nah,
But we want more.
but we want more.
Okay.
So we have to do another cycle. So this means we have to. Well, it depends. In some cases, we have the ability to go back. In some cases, we don't. If we don't, we have to rely on purely secondary data.
And that's...
And this is where the long part comes from.
Yeah.
Actual field research doesn't take too much of time.
Oh, it doesn't?
It doesn't. All you need is a month or so.
Okay.
Anywhere around 5 weeks.
But
is
the
usually-
analysis takes longer.
But the analysis takes longer. Why? We have to verify it with our own equipment. We have to verify it as compared to actual existing
Data.
literature,
Yeah, existing literature, existing analysis.
existing analysis, so that we know that our numbers are within the expected. We should know that our numbers are at least not one order of magnitude apart from the rest of the scientific.
Yeah, because otherwise you have to explain why.
yeah.
And I think here's where a really good, well, it's not really a quote, but it's a principle. 90% of 10% of research is execution. 90% is writing.
Is writing, and the writing takes so long.
Yeah.
So that's why science writers, people who write papers, are so highly priced.
Yes. That's why I haven't written anything. That's why I consider myself as a scientist in a sense, but I don't consider myself as much of a researcher yet because I haven't published anything apart from my thesis.
And you should know that if you want to publish anything, you will fall into the cycle of the revision cycle.
Oh yeah, definitely.
There is
definitely.
so many revision cycles that you have to
Yeah.
to take into account.
Yeah.
And that's normal. That's normal for any seasoned researcher
Yeah.
to continue to keep revising your own research
Yeah.
over and over because you kind of need to
Yeah.
until you get at least a very reasonable data set.
Yeah.
Or you have to do the statistics. You have to actually compare with the other data sets.
Yeah.
You have to, what else? Sometimes you need to fill in the gaps because the client is asking for data that doesn't really you do not have the capacity to actually directly get. So you have
Yeah.
to derive.
Yeah, you have to derive the data from your pre-existing data.
Usually it's projections.
Yeah.
A lot of the theme is taking something that works in a very, very, very small area and then expanding it so that it works for every other location. That's kind of a running theme that I've noticed.
Well, it is a scientific theme in a sense.
I mean, to be
Like
fair,
if you generate a model, you expect it to be predictive enough to predict behavior in other regions. Granted, obviously there are exceptions the smaller and smaller you get in scale. For example, this is not my research, this is Kevin's research. Tropical meteorology.
so we have an associate.
Yeah.
Associate.
We have a friend. We have a friend.
who
He-
is a meteorologist.
Yeah, he's a meteorologist. And basically, like, I remember the conversation we had at Banapol. And
As
it
a
re-
Banapol.
yeah. And it really struck with me because it made me realize how well, I already knew meteorology was a complicated thing. But the fact that the tropical climate is vastly different from above the tropics is, well, it was astounding for me because Kevin tends to be able to relate to me by talking in differential equations. And like the differential equations that apply for the weather and climate predictions in the tropics are vastly different compared to the equations that govern the temperate regions.
In
So,
fact, as far as I know,
yeah.
the Western Pacific in and of itself is already so complicated
Yeah.
that we don't even have a general consensus, or rather, we don't have a unifying equation.
Yeah, we
For
don't. We
that.
don't. Or at least Kevin will tell you that we don't. So overall, what would be our consensus on Dengbaksha? Like our consensus and views on the entire Dengbaksha scandal, mess, controversy, whatever. It's poorly implemented, poorly researched on our side and on Sanofi's side as well. But I think a large part of the research blame goes to Sanofi for not publicizing the results well. And then the blame falls on our government simply because,
We were the schmucks who wanted it the first. The
yeah,
most.
the first, the most, the prestige and all. Like, it's a recurring theme actually. Like, we were the first to implement it. We were the first to X, Y, Z. And that's generally a very foolhardy thing to do. But yeah. Now, let's move on to, still related to research, Cynthia Villar's very recent comments on research, especially the Department of Agriculture. This is another thing that strikes a chord with me. Because for one thing, like, Cynthia Villar's comments are essentially verbatim. Bakit lahat ng budget puro research? Baliw na baliw kayo sa research. Aanihin nyo ba ang research? Like, and then going a bit further, quote, ako matalino, akong tao, pero di ko maintindihan yung research nyo. Lalo na yung farmer. Gusto ba ng farmer yung research? Hindi ba gusto nila tulungan nyo sila? And Cynthia Villar both hits the point and misses it in this sentence.
In this sentence, yes.
Yeah. Yes, Philippine agricultural scientists want to help farmers. That is why they are doing research. Think about it. Remember, the Philippines is, first and foremost, what is one of our long-standing industries, especially in food.
In food.
Agriculture.
Agriculture.
We are an agricultural country.
A lot of Central Luzon is...
A lot of Central Luzon is agriculture.
Is rice farming specifically.
Is rice farming. Like, you live there, so...
Yeah, I mean, I say that because I live there.
Yeah, you know it best eh. So it irks me to the core when we don't do enough research in our agriculture. In fact, we're lagging behind on agriculture. Remember that I've said this multiple times on Twitter, IRL, over and over again. We
are...
import rice.
That is what I was going to say.
Yeah. We import rice. And that irritates me because
for some reason we didn't used to import rice in this scale.
Like
something happened.
Yeah, like as far back as elementary, it's been drilled into me. We were one of the founders of the International Rice Research Institute. The Philippines was its home base. And yet now we're lagging behind. And then now, like, shouldn't it be a cause of concern for at least our politicians to look back onto history, see that we were the developers of rice research.
We are still the developers of rice research.
Yeah, we are still the developers of rice research, yet somehow our agriculture has not progressed that far.
It actually did regress actually.
Diba?
Nag-regress eh. Like, our research is benefiting everyone else in Southeast Asia, but not us.
Yes. Like, that pisses me off. Really.
Something is off. Something just fell off the waysides at some point.
Yeah.
And the farmers are always saying that their yields are always like they keep going down.
Yeah.
They're having difficult time managing their own farm to keep their productivity up.
Yeah. But why do you think is that?
Well, for one, should we go directly to climate change?
Actually, yes.
Because extreme weather events, actually, yun kasi sinasabi ng mga farmers
Yes, extreme weather events
are occurring more frequently. Not
Not
just typhoons, but droughts.
droughts. So here's a thing that I think it falls onto Erie, but it also falls more onto the initiative of the political initiative. This irks me the most. Like this comment from Cynthia Villar irks me the most because 10 years ago, 20 years ago, what was the main line of research done by Erie with regards to rice yields? What were they combating?
As far as I know, they were trying to prevent pests from
Pestilence.
pestilence. Yeah.
Pestilence isn't the only issue anymore.
And the worst part was, I think it was around that time where they tried introducing other biological methods of controlling pests in rice, such as like the golden kohol,
Yeah.
which ended up being an ecological disaster because it was an invasive species.
Yeah. On the other hand, personally, gusto kong kumain ng kohol. Pero
I mean, that was only the side effect of that because
we had so much snails that
it actually became profitable for some areas to actually
sell them as
sell
food.
them as food.
I miss eating snails. Anyway,
And yet, things like golden rice are also still a thing.
Yeah.
It's still a debate. I mean, as early as the a few decades ago, because Erie really wanted the golden rice to happen, but it didn't. Mostly because of concerns simply because it was a genetically modified rice.
yeah.
And I mean, there are legitimate concerns as to why
GMOs
GMOs are, and I actually agree with specific concerns, specifically with regards to the intellectual property of genetic modified organisms.
Yeah.
That is actually my most concern about GMOs, is the fact that they are proprietary.
Yeah. But my main concern right now in the state of Philippine agricultural research is that I don't think we've done enough research with regards to climate proofing our crops.
Climate proofing our crops. For one, there are other reasons why, and I think definitely this has something to do with the changing land use. Lumalabas yung geographer ko dito actually.
Yeah.
But something happened within the last 2 decades or so, and the fact that is most agricultural lands are starting to be converted into residential lands.
Oh yeah, that's another thing that we need to point out. Well, it's conflict of interest.
It is a conflict of interest because
Cynthia Villar.
let's discuss that when it's more appropriate.
Okay.
But first, let's consider as to why are farmers selling their land, because it has become unproductive.
Yeah.
So this is the result. So what's the cause? Why is
Their
farming becoming more unproductive for some reason?
Yeah.
Is the land degrading in quality? Is the climate change actually seriously affecting the growth? Or, are there farming practices that need to be changed? Actually, there is one thing I'm pretty much acquainted with, and that's the rice straw problem.
Okay.
As an air pollution scientist, this is coming from that perspective. Since what I noticed, I didn't think there was a link to this until I started researching that. But in the agricultural provinces, a common way of disposing of agricultural waste, specifically rice straw, is to burn them. That causes a lot of issues. One, it's an immediate air pollution hazard. Two, it actually might contribute to the long-term degradation of the soil because ash is acidic.
Oh right, yeah. Rice is best planted in what conditions?
In slightly alkaline,
Inside the alkaline soil.
or at least not. It's not.
Or at
not,
least
not,
neutral.
Not neutral. Neutral at least.
At least neutral, at most neutral.
So you don't want anything that's mineralizing or acidifying your soil too much.
Okay.
That's why Phil Rice really is stepping up. Please do not burn your agricultural waste. They have entire programs built around that.
Okay, good.
People from there are recommending the farmers to go and compost it at least, something like that.
Yeah, at least composting will
or for rice husk specifically, you can carbonize it. You can turn that directly into rice char, but you have to do that under a controlled environment because you want to turn it into charcoal.
Yeah.
Um, and even then, you'd still want more sustainable ways
Of using that waste.
using that waste, or rather conditioning your soil in between the fallow periods.
Yeah.
So that's one. So the other is the integrated pest management, or rather something in the line of what Phil Rice calls palayamanan, in which case you combine farming with animal husbandry and basically let the outputs synergize with each other.
That's reasonable.
These are common sense solutions. While some of its some of its benefits are gimmicky in a sense, because they popularize the whole. If you do this, we can increase your total yield for both combining both farming and animal husbandry to the point where you're making 1 million pesos a year. The 1 million project.
Yeah, the 1 million project.
Parang ganon. I forgot I forgot what it's exactly called, but it's basic. The 1 million is part of that.
Yeah. You were talking about the 1 million project, and essentially,
I'm trying to go back to the main topic.
So
you can only do so much.
Yeah.
From the farmer's side, for common sense solutions.
For common sense farming solutions, yeah.
Because for some reason, the changing environment really makes it that
It's
farming
harder to
is
farm.
going to be harder over time due to the effects of climate change.
Yeah.
And compounding that fact is the problem that since farming is getting unprofitable, most people are now seriously considering, okay, so this land isn't working that anymore. So we'll convert it into another land use so that maybe we can get some more money out of it.
Yeah.
This is where the increasing build-up
Of residential and commercial complexes.
comes in. And now we can resume talking about Cynthia Villar. Because it is no surprise, it is no secret that the Villar family is a
Real estate magnate.
Yeah. And as early as the time that I was doing my my undergraduate thesis,
yeah, in geography.
Because
Like,
I was
diba, it's a weird thing that how the Villars can shape a city's borders in a town, no?
and everything changed when Camellia Homes decided
Yeah.
to enter Cabanatuan City.
Oh, yun. So, yun. Like, when Camellia Homes tries to enter into a particular place,
It changes
the landscape
drastically.
Like, I remember...
To varying levels of drastically.
To varying levels of drastic, but I distinctly remember during my time in Pisay. Usually, I commute from Calamba to Quezon City to here. And I noticed the gradual change of Muntinlupa. I don't remember houses there before. Why are there houses there?
In Cabanatuan City, it's just like, wait, that's still part of the city? Like, I guess that's why they put the Camellia there now, because that's where the people usually don't go.
Yeah.
But one thing I realized about that, where the placement of that is, that used to be rice land.
Oh, okay.
Or at least it used to be a lot of empty space. Empty, quote unquote, empty space.
It looked empty. It looked
empty. Or at least, according to the land use at the time, it was not actively being used for agriculture, at least. It was literally just open space.
Okay.
But still, that changes a lot of things. That changes the way people move. It changes where people go, what direction they move in, how many go here. Where people go to jobs. Things like that.
So next I'd want to look at this editorial article on the Inquirer regarding Cynthia Villar's comments. Maybe I should have mentioned this before we started talking about the comments, but I thought that we needed some peripheral input muna before moving here.
Okay.
Kasi this article mentions that what's the importance of research in especially in agriculture? For one, we have Diwata 1 and 2, which are the Philippine homegrown satellites. And yes, we do use Diwata 1 and 2 to monitor environmental conditions. In fact, thanks to those satellites, we can monitor them real time. That's a very good product of research. Granted, just because we can monitor the environmental conditions doesn't mean that we can utterly prevent them or we can prepare for them to the fullest extent, but at least we can try. That's at least one line of defense that we have. Next, of course, as we have mentioned, the International Rice Research Institute is housed here in the Philippines. So, the writer of the editorial actually explains how it happened. So, quote, how did this happen? While there are many factors behind this distressing development, it goes without saying that the country's lack of sustained support for research and development, or R&D, exemplified by the indifference or hostile attitude of politicians and policymakers toward allocating resources for it, unlike in other countries that invest billions of dollars in such programs, have contributed to the sorry state of science, technology, and innovation in the country. Here's a fact. By what percent do we spend our GDP on research?
I think probably less than 3%.
You're too kind. 0.2.
0.2.
Yes. The research goals, the goals usually for a fairly developed country, 1%. Just 1% of our GDP. We only spend 0.2% on research.
And yet
And yet, sinasabihan tayo na anong aanihin nyo sa research, ang laki-laki ng budget nyo sa research, bakit puro kayo research?
That's actually a common theme with regards to students, especially in grad school.
Yeah.
That we are being asked to do so much for so little.
Yeah.
Na, is it literally just a thing that we undervalue, as in literally undervalue science? We shouldn't be paying this much just for people to be writing papers. Isn't there na
Yeah.
may ganong image?
Yeah, like, okay, so what do you do for a living?
What do I do for a living? My current job, I currently work a desk job right now because of
Yeah.
my current workplace, and I usually just spend all day writing, processing tables. But lately I'm actually starting to go back out into the field again.
At least prepping.
Yeah, prepping because new client.
But
A lot of science is just this, and it people associate science with such dynamic expectations of it. No? We go here, we come in like Superman.
yeah. Oh, right. Yeah, it's also a common expectation. The scientists are here. They shall use science.
You should use science.
To fix our problems. But that's not always that's never instantaneous. It's
It's a process.
yeah.
Or at least the whole idea of science is for us to start developing good ideas, good habits,
Good solutions.
good solutions, good mental ethic.
Yeah.
It's science is less about the results or the process. It is a frame of mind.
Yeah.
It is the scientific method is more than just a method. It is a way of life. It is a way of thinking about problems. It is
Yeah.
the expectation that sometimes what we want isn't going to be
What we get.
what we get. And sometimes failure is just an important part of the process as success.
So, like, I think we can actually do a trace of why we only have 0.2% in our research. Like, divorcing it, well, it's not really safe to say that we could divorce it from all the other factors that compete with the budget, but
But at least we can at least
we
think
can trace it.
we can trace it.
Here's the thing. The Philippine government usually expects, okay, you do research here within 6 months, tapos. You have something.
I have something.
You have
that-
something that makes people's lives immediately better. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Madalas, it takes longer than 6 months to do that. Thing is, because the government is not seeing the returns within that time frame, they start lowering the budget. Like, you can't produce. Okay. So, I guess you guys aren't really that useful. Let's cut. Like, ganito eh. If they don't see any immediate returns, they cut.
It's actually this ridiculously simple. Because it is. That's exactly what happens.
I mean,
Why we had to fight. IESM had to fight for its budget.
yeah.
Before
I actually find it ridiculous that within UP, you guys had to fight for your budget eh. Considering that UP should know very well the impeding importance of climate and climate research. Climate environmental research.
Before what I had to say 2016, our budget, our entire immediate budget, without specifying specifics, was only a 6-digit figure for the entire year.
Ilang laboratories yon? Ilang laboratories lang yun?
8.
Hindi. 8 labs kayo. Ilang laboratories lang kayang i-fund ng 6 digits?
No, 6 digits. No. And that is the money that was specifically only meant for the admin section.
Oh, Jesus fuck.
The expectation was that the IESM should get their MOOEs for the individual labs prerogative na nila. Labs in IESM,
It suddenly became extremely competitive.
it's not just that they had to be extremely competitive. The external grants are literally their only source of income. Well, not necessarily income. The only cash flow
That they have.
that they have, wala silang direct support from the from the UP system.
Yeah. It's also the fault of the university.
Or at least not until recently. Until recently we actually
Yeah.
had, now it is a 7-digit figure at least. But at least
7 digits isn't still enough. How much will 1 million pesos get you?
1 point something, I think.
1 point something is still too low. For an entire institute.
Tapos yung additional MOO is somewhere along, yung specifically for the labs, at least meron na 8 million.
Okay. At least that is a bit more.
Well, no, but 8. Wait, I need to ask ISM people, pero I'm not sure about if na-approve yung request namin for that.
I hope so because
And
One-
the worst,
like,
okay,
imagine 1 million per lab. It's still too small.
The worst part about this is that the primary reason why the university wouldn't give money to us, hindi kami makapag-graduate ng students on time.
Okay. So, I think that explains the entire ISM situation. Like,
Ala,
judging-
di ba, tenure. We already discussed things
No,
like-
not even tenure. This is sakit to ng administrative academe. The fact that you want students to graduate. Well, obviously you do want students to graduate. You want them to move on with their lives, move on with their careers. But it's weird eh. Remember, ISM is supposed to be a research institute. That's why it's always only had a graduate program. Kami at least, we have the pressure in the NIP to teach.
Like, don't quote me on this, at least dun sa sinabi ko about yun dun sa pagpapagraduate, because that's only a suspicion that we've had.
Yes, but it's a suspicion that you've had up until to the director level eh.
Well, that's
Kevin
what-
tells me this as well.
I mean, to be fair, that's what Sir Aragones thinks.
Oh. So, it's a suspicion that the entire institute has eh.
Okay, so at least it's okay. We have confirmation that everyone thinks that way. Okay.
Everyone thinks that way, at least in IESM. So, it's an unhealthy thing in the academe.
Kasi
In the-
compare it to MSI. And MSI is big. Has always been the premier.
It is the premier marine science institute in the world.
Well, not necessarily marine science. What I was going to say was it is the unit in CS that is only a grad school component, and yet they're already doing this well.
Yeah.
Why? Because high profile sila.
Yeah.
Their research is plain and visible to everyone because it involves marine science.
Yeah.
Here, it's a little more abstract in ISM. We are dealing with things that cannot be seen with the naked eye sometimes. That's why we have infrared cameras.
Or take such a long time.
Like we need
Like climate models.
We need time series, typhoon tracks. We have time series aerosol concentrations. We have time series patterns of atmospheric inversion, etc., etc. Everything takes. We need to zoom out in time so much that we actually see patterns in the first place.
Yeah.
And that's not easy. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes lots of math. And lots of
Modeling
and coding. And it's difficult to argue your point with only numbers to your name.
Yeah. You never need graphs, at the very least.
Yeah, that's why our presentations are all visual.
Yeah. And like, so, to what end?
To what end? And it's not even information that is plainly useful. It's indicators. It's like what can looking at this tell you about what's gonna happen to the.
Like, what does this tell? Like, okay, so what if your PM 2.5 index is like this? What does it mean?
What does it mean? Does it? Well, at least for PM 2.5, at least it's pretty obvious. At least it has a direct. It has a direct implication to health.
Oh, see? So, ano reuse ng research mo?
We can-
May reuse ang research! So, anong anihin mo sa research? Policy!
Yeah, policy.
Like, for politicians, policy is your lifeblood. But you cannot... policy without basis on current data is empty.
If we can prove that, for example, if we have a problem with solid waste management, if we can prove that, okay, some of it is leaking out into the groundwater, or we have problems with collection, therefore the garbage is stuck in this location and doesn't actually go anywhere.
Yeah.
We need policy to get it out of there.
Yeah.
You need actual involvement from...
Yeah. Okay. So, you guys concluded that, okay, charcoal on the long term is bad. Charcoal fumes, at least.
Specifically, if your main cooking fuel source is charcoal, you will have to change that at some point kasi direct
impact yun ng health mo. Mm-hmm. Who said that?
It's basically the result of several years worth of research proving that these particles can get into your system and mess up your lungs.
Tapos sasabihin mo, anihin mo research?
And the fact that, look, if you go into certain LGU profiles na may mataas yung concentration ng mga taong gumagamit ng charcoal fuel, there is sometimes an actual visible na correlation na ang morbidity mo for obstructive pulmonary diseases actually increases.
So there's a direct correlation.
There is a direct correlation. No measurable, mind you.
So, like, even with just this example alone,
At least for health sciences.
Yeah. Like, anihin mo research.
We know that
we know that at least on the ground level for the applied for a ton of the applied sciences, health, environmental research, may anihin ka talaga sa research eh. So, like, the comment...
Like, for example, this is not my research,
Oh.
but for example, JOG students who have gone into field, kasi I've heard reports from them
Yeah.
na they've had to literally trek places where people aren't supposed to go. And by that, I mean talagang hostel na talaga yung thing because no one really goes there just
Yeah.
to find traces of groundwater. Kasi they needed to survey where the groundwater is kasi they're trying to investigate all the groundwater sources in the city as much as possible because they're trying to find out where the groundwater actually is potable or not. Kasi nagkakaroon ng problema with sanitation.
Okay.
And nagkakaroon ng problema with waterborne diseases. So, you have a team of 4 or 5 researchers going trekking into hostile terrain, basically. They've actually had to like, scale several outcrops. They've gone into wild nature in general. Only to find, okay, we need to find this well na somehow nandito sa GIS data natin. So it's like a wild goose chase looking for things that may or may not exist.
Okay.
And only because the satellite image is telling you that okay, there's a thing here. And then you actually have to find out if there's water there, and 2, if the water is clean. Unlucky. There's a lot of risk for these they're not even scientists at this point. They're college students.
Yeah.
They're
undergraduates.
They're undergraduates, and this is literally their class project.
Yeah.
And like when I heard that, I was like, this makes what we did in field look a little unimpressive. And what we did was actually profile an entirety of the of a protected area somewhere in Ilocos.
Oh.
But this, all within the span of 2 weeks. It's super crunch time talaga ng fieldwork nila. They finished everything in 2 weeks.
That's impressive.
That's the reputation of yung field advisor na yun.
That's impressive.
2 weeks for all components of the ecological profile. To be fair, they were a pretty large team. But yes, that means ang intense ng ginawa nila. Now, that's data gathering. The actual data processing is another thing.
So to what end?
To what end? Ang inanin nila sa research nila, they found out that a lot of the percentage of the groundwater in that area is contaminated by toxic metals.
Okay, so toxic. Leaching from where?
It's not leaching from where. It's just that the geology is
The
not
geology is just really a ton of heavy metals.
Meron lang talagang ore doon na hindi pwede na ano.
So it's better off for mining, probably.
Oh, parang ganoon na siya. It's not potable because there's a lot of minerals in the water that's not good for you. It's not it's not being polluted or anything.
Yeah.
It's just
So
talagang-
imagine if, like, okay, while the students were doing the research, some LGUs were already like, okay, guys, we don't have enough water. Let's get some water, and then they get that from the groundwater there, without looking at the conclusion of the research. Ano yung mangyari? You get mass poisoning.
Poisoning.
You'd get a situation like Flint in the US. Except, well, the US is man-made. Pero
Yeah, that's a different story.
that's a different story, but it's sort of tangential to this na you will still get a ton of poisoning within your ano. So this is where research goes. It goes into crafting good policy so that you could improve people's lives better. At least like, thing is kasi the research that you guys do is already very tangible. It's just that it takes a while.
It takes a while, yeah.
It takes a while. Like, it's going to take more than 6 months, but it's not going to take more. It's not going to take more than 20 years to see the fruits of this research. Hell, like yung direct na kino-quote sa article, sa editorial, is on UPLB's Dr. Ricardo Lantican.
Yeah. The internet
The core.
rush to defend the science because they posted this.
Yeah, like in the 1960s, corn research in LB by Dr. Lantican. It only took 10 years for it to be recognized. Granted, it took 10 years for it to be recognized. But in the agricultural sciences, usually, it's not going to take you more than 20 years to see fruits.
Yeah, it shouldn't.
It shouldn't. And 10 years is reasonable for a policy cycle eh. Things kasi like when we start criticizing our politicians na, they're so short-sighted that they want things done within their term. When in reality, if you're being scientific about it, you should realize that when you're building policy, especially if it's grounded on science, especially if it's grounded on good research,
Retention is important.
data retention is important. Policy retention is important. Like your policy needs to last beyond your term. Kasi otherwise, there's no point. It's not sustainable.
And I have a worry, actually.
That
A tangible worry, specifically because of one of the sites na pinagtrabahuan ko dati. I worked in one of these sites before, and we had just had another local elections. The people that I talked to in the city environment office are no longer there. They've been laid off their jobs.
the hell?
Apparently, they've been laid off their jobs. And I'm like, I'm sorry. This is the one department.
That made sense.
No. Not only did they make sense, they were one of the most cooperative, most common sense of the people with the most common sense. They were the most intuitively, we'll just ask the barangay. They were just, okay, we'll just connect you to this barangay captain, and then we'll just talk to him or her. Madali silang kausap, period. And if you knew how difficult it is to be talking to LGUs in general, because usually they're just mirroring kung ano man yung policy ng current admin ng mayor.
Yeah.
This Senro was independent enough to do its own job. And now I hear that all of that its head has been laid off. I'm kind of worried now. I almost kind of want to go back and check on things because I don't want the work that we put in there to just disappear.
Like, go poof. But yeah, it is like this stresses the need for research, especially in policy making. Like, so why do we do research? At least on the tangible aspect of it, on the immediately tangible aspect of it, it's to help you guys make better laws.
I used to want to impact laws in general because of the way we were taught in environmental science that policy is important.
Yeah, policy is still important though. But
The thing is, in reality, what I've kind of gotten from all of this experience is that lobbying is a heavily
lobbying is expensive.
well, that's not the point I was going to make, but
Okay.
lobbying is exhausting in several ways. It is exhausting because you are going against the agenda of a powerful person in authority that you will probably not be able to convince. And I'm like, I think I want to change things from the ground because that's where
That's where it works.
that's where it works. I think the more people see that we can do things on the ground, the more people see that change happens once we start doing good habits. Once we start actually using the word best practice.
Yeah.
We use that term a lot, best practice. To do practice, to do things the way that it makes one the most sense and two the most beneficial to the citizens in general.
Yeah.
The constituents of your municipality or city LGU. All it takes is mostly simple solutions for simple problems.
Yeah.
And yet, everything is drowned out in a barrage of programs. Everything has to be programs. When sometimes the solutions are literally just, okay, we can just change this, the way things are done, by just this. And it will actually work. Where people will get somewhere if you let them communicate. That's one thing that I've learned in field. And the worst part is sometimes that takes an agency that is willing to just do things without being told to do things. And that's depends. It depends on whether how attached the government officials are to a certain
Yeah.
administration. This is talking about only the LGU scale.
Yeah.
And for us to do good work, it has to be something that directly affects the quality of life of everyone.
Yeah. Definitely. Like,
If it
it,
doesn't, then it's useless.
yeah, it's useless if it doesn't really positively affect your constituents. And that's, I think, is a really important point for a ton of Philippine research, health, agriculture, geology, etc. Like, this is what matters. This is why this also a last point before we go on a break. Like, one of the driving forces of why I continue to be a scientist, like, my parents keep on telling me, anak, ayaw mo magtrabaho, corporate. Ayaw ko po eh. Gusto ko talagang magturo eh. But what I never actually tell them is the fact that I feel a huge debt to the Filipino taxpayer. I was a PSI scholar. I was also a DOST scholar. And personally, I feel that science should serve the people. And this is what we're going to go on the next segment after the break, where I talk about this time. I say you did all the talking for this segment. This time I will be doing the talking after the break on the theoretical aspects of research. Why is theoretical research important, naman? Because, like, I'll get to this after the break. So break muna kami. We will buy supplies since it is almost 1.
It is 12:45 in the morning.
Yes, it is almost 1. After we talk about the theoretical sciences and then scientists and mental health, we'll be taking another break, and then I will start raving about virtual YouTubers.